Oh shit.
Good day, race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast. The podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name's Jeff. I'm here with Just Finn this week. Corey is out, and you can find us on YouTube and Spotify under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch under the handle Intentional Wreck, and the actual handle is at IntWreckPod, at INTWRECKPOD. Like I said, it's just the two of us this week,
Just the
but
two
we've
of
got
us.
some things to talk about. I mean, we had a kind of a snoozer of a race. I mean, most people are just going to spend their time talking about another boring Bristol Spring race, aside from last year being somewhat of an anomaly. But Kyle Larson went out for basically 3 days and put out a clinic on how to run
Mm-hmm.
that track.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I didn't know what your thoughts were kind of rolling into that. I feel like there's not a ton to say.
It was one of those just ass whoopings, man. Really. It was just what I told you before we started the pod is we're not going to spend this episode being the 20th podcast that's shitting on the short track package. We get it.
Yeah.
Right? We get that this car simply does not put on, and I'm glad. At this point, I welcome these races. Let it be boring. Let it be awful, right? Because last year's spring race and those dirt races were 5 times more enjoyable than anything else. Now, the good race poll that Jeff Gluck puts out, for years, Bristol were the top 10 races that to ever be polled were Bristol races of the late 2008s, early 2000s with that 750 Gen 6 package. Actually, if I recall, they might even have had the 500 horsepower package. But either way, I can't remember exactly what. I think Bristol might have had the intermediate horsepower. But either way, way better scenario. And then we come here. It's the same Bristol for many, many years. So it's not a track
Yeah.
problem as far as I'm really concerned. So, I mean, everybody had, practice. There's a lot of tire stuff, and everybody's like, okay, what's gonna happen? So everybody was like coming out the gate single file, and then the 5 was just like how was the 5 the first person? Because once again, the 48 is literally leading the laps. Like the first 40 laps, and it had to be at some point. They were like, hey, we can go fast now, because Carlos just said, y'all. Guys, the track's taking rubber. We can go 100, and just pulled out and just passed everybody, and then nobody touched him for the rest of the race. That was it. And it was just like, that was the end of the race. The race was won on lap 40 when he just decided, oh shit, you guys are dumb. You guys don't realize that the track's taking rubber and we can just go like normal forever. And from there were no ill-timed cautions. There was just Shane Van Gisbergen getting caught up. Somebody said, oh, Ash Van Aley, if he won the truck race, I think NASCAR fans would have burned down Bristol. I don't know. I think that, and thank you for popping by the way. I think Larson's liked enough, but I'm just at the point where I'm just like, listen, I'm cool with it. Let's just wreck the short. Let's let Martinsville just be a snoozer. Okay, we just had 3 of maybe the most snoozer weeks in a row of the next gen package, right? Martinsville, Darlington, and Bristol, which are like the NASCAR tracks of the South. You know what I'm saying? You ask a NASCAR fan over 50, what's your favorite track? It's one of those 3, right? Historically, it's one of those 3. And for those to be the snoozer, and well, guess what? We're going to Dega, not this week, but next week. And guess what? We're going to get 2 lane of Dega where they're all lifting to save gas for the entire race. And it's just like, okay, well, what are we doing here? So it's, it sucks. It sucks that there's just nothing. There was no strategy. Was there even anybody that could really pass at all? Logano was like, they were like, fastest movers of the race. Joey Logano, he's up 10 spots. And he was lapped like 3 laps later. It was like,
he was 3 laps down by the end of the race.
Yeah. And so
that one was, I don't know, that part of it was interesting. The other thing that most people are going to end up talking about when it comes to this race, it's the conversation is tires. Why no tire like last year? Like that's,
yeah,
that ends up being like the primary discussion for this week because it was so good last year. And now track compound, the different tires this week, and they didn't quite do the exact same thing. it's still like it's Bristol. It's gonna be great. Like the track in and
Right.
of itself is gonna be good. The potential is there.
Right.
It's just you're gonna have a few duds every now and then, and that's okay. And what I don't want to do is minimize what Kyle Larson did. I don't want to mistake the fact that, like, yes, this may have been boring and let that overshadow the fact that Kyle Larson went out there and
Right.
kicked the shit out of everybody
So,
for an entire weekend.
so
So
right.
don't mistake that part.
Right. Well, I think the biggest thing with the Xfinity cars is that they can get up under there, right? He can put in, you can get real close up to the cars. The aero of these just don't allow that. So, I mean, again, we're getting to the point where the other series are, again, this is a dead horse we're beating here, but like we're showing up, and the worst product is the Cup Series. Sans like ARCA, if ARCA's there that week, you know what I mean? And even then, in some cases, the Cup Series is slower than the other series, So, um, it's a frustrating thing as a fan of the sport. Um, and then you look at, like you just said, like Larson leading all those laps. That was an asshole. Well, guess what? We said the same thing about Byron, a rocket ship, like generally like Jeff Gordon Raptor car levels of, or not Raptor car, dinosaur car. Remember Jurassic Park? No, it's T-Rex. Sorry, I'm getting all my dinosaurs mixed up. Not a big
Yes.
dinosaur guy. The T-Rex Jeff Gordon car that they said don't ever bring back, right? You would think, oh wow, that's what Byron had at Darlington. A shoe-in unless he wrecks the car. Well, he didn't. He just got back in second place and then he couldn't pass. So the fastest
You
car.
you you tweak something in my neurodivergent brain when you
Yeah.
start talking about mischaracterizing dinosaurs.
Sorry, I'm not a big dinosaur guy. Sorry. I didn't get that part of the spectrum. I got something else. But
Hey man,
I could see virtual baseballs, incredible. But dinosaurs,
you
trains,
are yeah.
not my thing. But we're all somewhere in there. But no, like I genuinely think if Larson would have been in second place or third place in that race, he wouldn't have been able to pass any of the other top cars. I think you could just
No.
put any of the other ones out there and just say go. The only thing that, again, Larson is extremely impressive. The only thing that Larson is better at than anybody at Bristol is getting through lap traffic. That's really it. It's like his, and again, it's the things that make Larson Larson. It's the same reason he bends it in some random race, like the first lap of Darlington, right? It's because he's driving the thing on edge. And other people are a little bit scared too. But again, I don't think if like Denny was in front of him, I don't think he's passing Denny, dude. I don't think the only reason he passed Alex Bowman is because the 48 finds a way to lose a cylinder on a track where everybody just runs around the line. Qualified pole. So there's my
And you had
weekly
no feelings about that at
my
all. I'm
weekly
sure.
Alex Bowman frustration as a 48 fan is just like watching a car. Oh shit! Like other weeks it was strategy calls. This week he's running P3 and then they just drop a cylinder or whatever it was and they're blowing up and it's just ridiculous. So the shit on Bristol session is over. We get a break, then we get Talladega, which
That's more of a me thing than a you thing, I'm sure. You know how much I
yeah.
love these speedways. Here's one. Like Ash brought it up in the chat, and it's been something that's been brought up before, and I think it's an interesting discussion because, like, I know we've touched on it like at some point last year, but like she specifically said Larson over Verstappen. At this point, that is as I said, that is becoming less and less of a controversial take in my opinion, unless you are 100% fully bought in all F1,
Right.
and you shit on NASCAR and that kind of thing. As far as being a versatile driver who has the ability to lay it out at just about every different track layout at any different type and is a threat every single time he gets behind the wheel of almost any car he drives, it's not
Right.
wrong because I would have trouble believing that Max Verstappen wouldn't have a lot of trouble if he got behind the wheel of a cup car. It just
Right.
a lot of guys struggle on ovals in general. I would even say like put him on a road course. I feel like he
Right.
would probably finish behind Larson at this point.
Well, it all depends, right? So there's a lot. I think we have enough crossover in our sport, considering like SVG, considering Ambrose and Juan Pablo Montoya. First of all, full stop. Max Verstappen is like better as a Formula One driver than like Juan Pablo Montoya was, right? We're talking about a generational talent, even in the Formula One ranks.
True.
Um,
but Red Bull also plays a huge part in
Right,
that. He's
right,
got
right.
all of the resources.
First of
in the
all,
world.
yes, Max Verstappen. The big thing is, right, as we all know, money can drive. So, first of all, will he have a competitive car? Absolutely. Now, the next question is: with competitive car, can Max Verstappen compete in ovals? And I think SVG is a great metric for that, right? Because a truly elite talent, right? Not necessarily the same things that make them elite. Um, but I don't know how I don't think Max Verstappen would do. I don't think he'd be competing for wins in Cup at any quicker of a pace than SVG is in terms of ovals. He SVG has been very outspoken about how difficult this shit is, and it is not easy, right? The only guys that we've really ever seen come from those other series over and compete in ovals are guys like Tony Stewart. You know what I mean? Like guys that were winning races in Indy and then winning races in Cup. Or, Juan Pablo Montoya, I think might have won one oval. I don't think Ambrose ever won an oval. Um, so I don't know if Max is going to come over because it's just a whole different style of racing, and there's not enough consistency in the schedule and enough practice. That's another one. F1, 3 practices, a whole qualifying session. You know what I mean? Like they get ample amount of time, and their data is so perfect, right? I'm again not speaking ill of Verstappen, but I do think that in NASCAR you don't. I mean, I guess more so SMT now, but like it's not the same, right? We don't you don't get like fuel numbers, right? All the thing like it's hey Max, how can we improve the car? It's a different like style of driving. It's a different entry. It's not. It's more, you know. It's not like you can make a bunch of settings and then it's like, oh, to kind of change the car. It's like, hey, this is kind of what we showed up with. This is what we got. We're kind of limited. We go again. I'm very
Yeah.
simplifying the sport. Now,
And you have 10 seconds to make this change in the pits now.
right. You know what I mean?
Based on
Like,
word of mouth from what your drivers
right.
experience.
In the moment you got used to Darlington, we're at Bristol next week, and you're gonna get 1 hour of on track time. Or not even an hour of practice, right? I just simply don't think that that's conducive enough. So if the practice and seat time was more, I think so. I think he could compete. Could Max Verstappen compete in ovals? After a couple races. I don't think it'd be like SVG. I think what made SVG or road courses, SVG so good is because the V8 supercars match the Cup cars very similarly, right? So I think that Max would be able to, I think just craftiness and knowing the tracks and knowing the tricks and the confidence. But two things. One, F1 doesn't allow as much, or if any, bumping compared to NASCAR. We've seen SVG get bullied on restarts. Wait till Max Verstappen has to deal with John Hunter Nemechek and Austin Cindric, boxing him in and, somebody just, Ross Chastain at Coda this year. You know what I mean? Just dive bombing for like things that just the FIA would have a stroke over. So like
there's a lot of things with
right,
NASCAR that the FIA would have a stroke over.
Ross,
it's what makes it so beautiful.
The FIA would crucify Ross Chastain. Like it would happen. So
without a doubt.
So I think those. So again, how quick can he be competitive, or how well? I think road course races. I think Max is absolutely one of the best in the world, and he's got some of the best reflexes in the world. But I think it's a lot difficult in the car. So the discussion of Larson over him. Well, like how many other cars are closer to what Larson drives? For example, yes, he did good in Indy, but that was an Indy oval. Let's be respectful, right? Jimmy Johnson looked halfway okay on Indy oval as well and finished top 10 at Texas in an oval, right? Old Jimmy Johnson. Let's be real here. I don't know how Kyle Larson would compete on an Indy road course. I really don't. Right, I'd love to see it too. Or the WEC or the IMSA stuff, right? I would love to see both of those guys, help team up together. You know what I mean? Like team up together, and then both of you guys got lap times in the same exact car, but it's less of a racing against each other. But we get to see. But I don't know. I don't know where I would put my cards. I think Larson will be better immediately in any car. Like if we put them in a neutral car, I think Larson is going to be better immediately, like out the gate, short term. But I think over the long term, I think Max would be able to, at a minimum, equalize. That's how I feel. That's how I feel.
Well, it's funny because you brought that. One of the things, like getting to that point, is you brought up like a dream of mine is I would love, and I mean love, to see NASCAR capitalize on the success of what happened with the Garage 56 car
Yep.
and just let's go the next step
Yeah.
and like take all of your best stable that you can out of NASCAR and put them in a WEC race,
Right.
put them in an IMSA race or an endurance race, and just let them go and see what happens.
Right.
But put together, put in all the engineers, all of the minds, everybody that you possibly can, put them all together, make a just NASCAR god tier team,
Right.
and run them out there in the 24 hours of Daytona and see what happens.
Right. Right.
That would be just peak. I mean,
Right.
if there was ever a way to pull in more NASCAR viewers to watch the Rolex 24, that's, oh my God.
Right, exactly. And Nick
Yeah.
brings up a good point. I mentioned it last week on the podcast. Like, there's that. I think it's called the Race of Champion, International Race of Champion. It's not I can't remember the series, but they invite like duos out to. It's often hosted in different countries, but Europe and Carl Edwards went 1 year and it's like equal cars, right? There's no like setups. Like you guys get in the car and it was like little indoor. It was like indoor circuit racing, and Carl Edwards beat the brakes off of Michael Schumacher, and like there's that, and Jimmy Johnson's done that in the ice, and he beat an F1 driver. Granted, Jimmy Johnson, as we know, is way more used to driving a car with zero grip in ice than the F1 driver is going to be used to. So that's expected, I think. But I think that's the closest we've gotten to seeing like a direct comparison of them, right? Obviously, no NASCAR drivers have been able to be relevant in F1. But I think they could compete. I think they could. I think Max could absolutely win like an Xfinity road course race within his first 5 starts. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but could, like, for example, when he goes to the Cup, he's not just racing Kyle Larson, Chase. He's got to race SVG. You know what I mean? Like, there's some dogs. He's got to race the Reddicks and the Bells. And again, even with the clean racing, you're just stepping in somebody else's domain. So, speaking of that, well, what's up?
Yeah, what you got?
Well, I was going to move over.
At some point, like, I'm going to have to carry into my victory lane because I'm not just going to ignore
Yeah,
that.
okay. All right. So Bell wins victory lane this week, and if you don't know, every week at the end of the podcast, we pick our picks for the next week. And sometimes it's a free-for-all, whoever you want to go. Sometimes we do, like a couple weeks ago, what did we do? Like dark horses, where I chose Eric Jones at Darlington, and you took Bush, I think it was, or maybe Corey took it. But anyways, last week you took Bell. I took Busher, who qualified deep in the pit field and got lapped with Logano very early. And I can't remember who Corey took. Probably another B. Byron?
Busher. He took Busher.
I took Busher.
Oh, then he took Bush.
Okay. So you took Bell. You get
another week of all B's.
And as a result, he gets 1 minute uninterrupted to talk about whatever he would like to.
And much to your dismay, I'm going to talk about hockey because Corey missed and fumbled that bag last week, and I'm sure as shit not going to. I would like to take my moment and talk about the great Alexander Ovechkin and the grade 8 becoming officially the greatest goal scorer of all time in NHL history, surpassing Wayne Gretzky. Currently sits at 896. The game is happening right now, and I can't tell you whether or not he's scored tonight. I know that they were trying to rest him a little bit for the playoffs going up, just because with the President's Trophy race ending, thank goodness we actually didn't get that. Any Caps fan can relate. It may sound a little backwards, but the significance of this man in DC sports, the significance of him on the Washington Capitals, and the significance of him in my life as a sports fan of this team, as someone who's been watching the Capitals since I was a little kid, watching starting out through the Bondra years, like the end of the Dino Ciccarelli years, Ole the goalie, the Yager years, like, all of those times, and then seeing somebody come to our city and play for our team who was not just a generational talent, he was somebody that when he stepped out on the ice, you immediately knew where he was, even if you weren't watching him, because he looked different than everybody else. Not aesthetically, the way that he skated, the way that he moved, the way that he took over and had a presence on the ice was unlike anything I'd ever seen before in my entire life. And he could hit, he could shoot, He could pass, he could move, and play a little defense depending on the scenario. And something like that was incredible. And I've watched this man his entire career. And now, as we watch it wind down, we finally get to see someone here hoist one of the more prestigious titles in all of sport in general, because there was a time where people thought Wayne Gretzky's scoring record was never going to be broken. We know his points record is never going to be broken. I mean, like, at least not while I'm alive. There's no way that anybody's going to actually surpass his points record. But we saw someone hit his goals, and it was our guy. So thank you, Alex Ovechkin, for everything that you've done for Washington, D.C. Thank you for what you've done for the Capitals and for literally adding years to my life when we won the Cup in 2018.
Yep.
That's my victory lane.
Everything those Commanders lost, you gained it back with Alex. So we're nice and even. So in an effort to not make this podcast be anything more about hockey, let's talk about NASCAR 25. You're a gamer.
Ooh.
I'm a gamer.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this chat are gamers. Well, there's 3 of us. Point is, today I want to talk about, we did a big podcast a year ago about NASCAR 25 when it got announced that iRacing was going to be taking it over. And I think it's a good time to kind of retouch that as we're getting closer to the summer. It's set to drop in the fall, so we're anticipating to hear a lot of news. There's a lot of topics I want to talk, but the biggest thing is the mode, the career mode. And I want to talk about like some things that I think would, obviously there's a career mode. We're going to talk about like, hey, some other sub game modes. Like, what do you think would be fun, right? Something that's like that you get on and just kind of play outside of the standard, multiplayer online race or career mode. That'll be one thing to kind of chat about. And I want to talk also about like what are the things that could be their downfall, right? What are the biggest mistakes that you think that they can make in this career mode that may not ruin it for you, but that could put them less. It gets to the point, because you know how it is, like with EA games, it's at the point where like when EA puts out a bad product, we're like, yeah, duh, why did you spend $70 on that game, right? And I was watching F1. They dropped their F1 25 career mode stuff, and I think it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty good. And I think if NASCAR 25 can kind of follow these guidelines that we're going to talk about here, and I'm going to hear what you think on it as well, it could be one of the greatest racing games of all time. It really can be.
It's possible, yeah.
Because
sure.
NASCAR, EA NASCAR in the early 2000s was done a great job. And what that lacked was graphics and a realistic driving engine, right? Because that's the technology we have at the time. Well, now we have incredible driving technology, and we're lacking any game outside of Formula One that has any career mode, and NASCAR games are just in the dirt, right? So if you don't know, iRacing literally is the people that make like this sim, like the simulator for all these styles of racing, including NASCAR, and it is a fantastic experience, okay? Literally one of the greatest racing experiences you can possibly have today, and it scales. It could be as simple as you with a controller or a wheel attached to your desk in one screen, to having a full $10, $15, $20,000 motion rig with multiple screens that supports VR. It's fantastic. So we've got the baseline. Now it's time to make it. So first I want to ask, let's talk about the game modes. Okay, career mode is going to be a given. Online multiplayer, like basic online race together, cool. I have a game mode. We mentioned before, but bring it back. Give me those moments, right? You've played MLB The Show, right? There's these little things. There's moments. There's moments, but I will say this:
it kind of in the older NASCAR,
right? It becomes a drag, and they used to have these, but this is a perfect opportunity to relive some of the best of the last couple years of the next gen era, right? Hey, take over Chase. Running down Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe wrecked his vehicle to take himself out of contention for the Coca-Cola 600. Take over the 14 car at the time. Take over the 14 car and pass Kyle Larson and win the race. Go. And you've got 10 laps to run it down. Or hey, you're so-and-so with or hey, Tyler, you're Tyler Reddick, and you've got older tires, and Ryan Blaney is running you down at Darlington. Conserve your tires and win the race. You know what I mean? Like reversing
Oh,
history or
you're,
recreating history, right? Like
you're Denny Hamlin in 2020 at Indianapolis. Don't blow your tire with 7 laps to go. Yeah.
exactly.
Totally not still salty and bitter about that one at all. No, not in
Yeah.
any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so and so, or and the best ones for anybody who's played the old games, where a wreck occurs ahead of you, and you have to get through the whole thing without taking any damage. You
The
can't
best
pass the
and most
moment, right?
frustrating at the same
Right.
time.
And so again, so what incentivizes you to play that, right? Well, first of all, if I recall, you can get like certain, like unlock certain paint schemes for those cars and things like that. Um, so like for certain drivers and so like throwback schemes or throwback drivers and stuff. Um, Throwback drivers would be a fantastic thing to have in the game, don't you think?
Well, so to that point, that's one thing I'm wondering is the flavor of the week for everything sports games is some sort of what is your ultimate team? What is your card? What is it like?
Right.
I'm wondering what would that look like in a NASCAR game, right? Like,
It
because you
would.
bring up historic drivers, you bring up historic schemes.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm wondering is like, what does Diamond Dynasty or Ultimate Team look like in a NASCAR game?
I hope nothing. I hope it's impossible to do because that style of gaming has ruined sports games completely. And the only thing that makes
You don't like microtransactions, Finn?
I don't like microtransactions, and please stay as far away. But again, I have thought about it. Like, is there an ultimate? I will say this in the same way that like NASCAR Fantasy doesn't always like there is a NASCAR Fantasy, but it's not the same. It just doesn't work out that well, right? Because the main thing about Ultimate Team is your trading cards. You're building your team with your trading cards. Well, one, NASCAR doesn't really have a big trading cards market. I know because I have a 1 of 5 William Byron signed card and I cannot sell the thing for $40 on Facebook. So there's not a market for NASCAR cards for one. And two, it's like you can't like combine them into a team and then race with them, right? And then you don't get to control all of them. Like even if I did like have Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, 77 Richard Petty or whatever, like how does that then translate into an on-track thing? And then the biggest thing is those modes are multiplayer driven, right? So how do I make that? So I feel like what you should instead do is something similar to like how 2K has brought in this like eras thing. And what that looks like is again, this is more of a long-term thing, less short term to drop a game this quick. So I'm not expecting this to be a NASCAR 25 thing, but if you're thinking how do we incorporate old drivers and stuff like that, well, if they can somehow earn the rights for older versions of the car, hey, this is the Gen 4 era. You're back in 2000. You can run the 2000, 4 or 2003 Nextel Cup season. Right, so we'll call it the 2000s. It's an obscure era year, and you start it, and like all those drivers and their old school paint schemes are there, and you can run a season in those eras.
I would
Right?
love that. Yeah.
Hey, early
All the
90s,
gens.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Early 90s, Jeff, Earnhardt, you know what I'm saying? And like kind of those storyline, and the way that you can treat it is kind of how I'm going to say a word here. Don't jump down my throat. But how MLB The Show does the Negro League stuff, right? Where they've got those storylines where it's teaching you about the history of all of these guys. And they're obviously focusing on the color barrier and all of the old players of those leagues and how they contributed to the game. And you go in there and you do these moments and you earn, you're working through, you're earning their cards, you're doing moments that were relevant to what happened to them in real life. So if you could do something like eras, Jeff and Earnhardt, right? Early 2000s, all of the things there. I don't really know what rivalries there were. Jimmy versus everybody. You know, was it Richard Petty and Davey Allison? Was like the Bobby Pierce? You know what I'm saying? Like all those guys in those early like eras. Like those are the three distinct eras of the sport, right? The Petty years, the Earnhardt Gordon years, the 2000s, and then of course the modern stuff, right? So if you could find a way to fuse that, again, make it a season long, right? It doesn't have to be a full career mode out of it, but I think that would be a fantastic game mode. Expose people to the history of your sport. Bring in those names and give people something worth doing again for a season. You're like, hey, I'm going to go run the 2000 season. And it's like loosely based off of these seasons, right? The car of tomorrow, you know what I mean? Like that could be an era. So I don't know exactly how that would pan out, but I think that would be, if they're looking for intuitive game modes down the line, that's something I would load up and do and then drive the different cars. But that would obviously mean licensing, right? Do they have the licensing to run these old cars and all these schemes and even all these sponsors, you know? And I'm going to get into the sponsor stuff because I have a question about later because I think on my list of like biggest mistakes is something that's very key if you've ever played a NASCAR career mode. But do you have anything to add on game modes?
Not necessarily, because and you'll get there, or at least it's a given. The biggest thing that could potentially tank this game at all, which I generally have faith is not going to happen, is poor driving physics and poor AI and the way that it's going to react to, because that's been, like, you can talk about the glitching and other pieces of the NASCAR Heat Series and any of the other motorsport games factors that came in that were a problem, but one of the most annoying, constant frustration points with those games, the AI is so bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
If it's not just insanely boring, it's completely unrealistic and off the wall and makes it just unbearable to play.
Right. Right. Well,
So
for what it's worth, again, iRacing as a whole has been working heavily, and I haven't got a chance to try out their adaptive AI system, but they just launched a big adaptive AI system. So even outside of our game, NASCAR 25, that they're developing, iRacing's main thing is AI approach. And another thing too is like budget and experience and like desire to learn things, right? Like they already have a successful platform that if they have successful AI, it just improves upon. It's not like they're like a one-off stuff trying to make 1 year of a game, and if it doesn't work, they just pivot to something else, which is what I think we saw with the motorsport stuff, right? They were like, the NASCAR fans are going to buy this game, the non-NASCAR fans we don't care about. Just go. And you're right. Like you load up into a race and like you can't find the middle ground. Either you're passing 40 car, either you single-handedly can outdraft an entire 30 car field at Darling or at Daytona, or you lose the pack immediately. There's like no medium ground. And then you look up there and it's like JJ Yaley and like a backmarker car is winning the race because they just don't have an understanding of how these things. So that's a good point.
It's that and the fact that they race you as though you don't exist. It's as though there's not a car on the track. They will race each other,
Right.
or they will just not. It's as though there's not another car anywhere near. Like the concept of running someone up the racetrack is the biggest understatement ever, right? It's like if that AI is going to take the high line and you're right next to them, they're going to try and take the high line no matter what, as though you don't exist. Like it's just constant.
I do think the first thing that I think could break the game would be NASCAR getting in their feelings. And what I mean by this is, look at Madden, for example. Madden, you remember the early 2000s Maddens, you could tear an ACL, you can get a concussion, you can get a career-ending injury, you can make a whole team, you can import the jerseys. And Roger Goodell in the NFL said, no, 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 no. We don't want that in our game. And that's not the only reason Madden sucks, but one of the biggest things is Madden is so, they decided to put their hands in the pot too much, and it killed a lot of things like creativity, creating a team. They're like, we don't want to see the Raiders logo in pink. Okay, lame.
Yeah.
And now as a result, the game is limited to what they can do. And I hope that NASCAR, when it comes to sponsorships, when it comes to things in the game and things like that, I hope that that's not something that grips a hold of it and is like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do this thing, right? And what I mean by that immediately is I think drivers should have stats, right? Things like every driver should be like Denny Hamlin should be A+, like it could be an overall or letter grade, an A+ short track driver, an A+ super speedway driver, a B+ mile and a half driver, and then like, I don't know, he's won a couple road course races, so we'll give him a B. We'll give him a B to a B- road course, and that's Denny. And when you race Denny at short track races, you should expect to see the 11 consistently up front, right? Barring things that happen in the race, bad qualifying. Again, things will happen, right? You know, I don't know how you program all of that into the game, but cool. But also, you're not gonna, Shane, you should see Shane Van Gisbergen back there. He should have a fucking, he'll have a B minus in super speedways because whatever, it's super speedways. He'll have D's in short track and D's in mile and a half, but an A plus in road course. So as soon as we get to Watkins Glen, SVG's on the pole. You know what I mean? Or a top 3 qualify, right?
I'll expand on that, because using the Madden analogy, that regardless, people like players still pay attention to their Madden ratings.
Yeah.
That's still a thing. Like, it's
Right.
still a point where when the Madden folks show up at a practice facility and they're trying to like get those ratings down, you will hear players gripe about what their ratings are. That's still a thing. How cool would it be to, hear drivers go, they didn't really rate me very high in this, or this stat wasn't up there, and then
Again,
I want to get that, and they're going after
Right.
iRacing and stuff like that. That would be really cool.
But don't give me, and this is all basis into the career mode because it all plays a part of it, right? But like, for example, all cars shouldn't be the same, right? So it should be your driver stats.
Yes.
And Hendrick cars. So Hendrick cars are going to be A plus, and we'll make it simple, right? A tier teams: Hendrick, Joe Gibbs, Penske, right? And then B tier teams are 23XI. Again, don't be afraid to be a little kinder, right? But like, hey, Wood Brothers we'll call it, B tier for Wood Brothers, even though it's technically Penske. You have to have them separate, right? Richard Childress Racing, 23XI. Okay, tier 3 is going to be Spire, Front Row, all those teams. So you level the teams out. So then the car is that. So the car is that good inherently. And what I mean by that good is like it performs better, right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how that applies in career mode. But then, so an A plus driver and an A plus car. Okay, so in the Trackhouse B tier car, or maybe, we'll call it B tier. They're having a rough year, but the Trackhouse goes B tier car. Well, Shane is C minus in short track racing, and he's in a B tier car, so he's going to be way more in the back. But then when he's A plus with a road course, he's up there, but he's not like light years ahead. Like if Shane ends up in Hendrick Motorsports, yes, he's going to leave the field. But those two can play against each other, and I'm going to bring that. But that's, again, I just would hate it if like a team got butthurt and then took away the licensing for the game. Like, I don't know how it licensing works, but imagine like 23XI is not in there because Michael Jordan's butthurt that he isn't an A-tier team. You know what I mean? Like, not that he would, but that is what could kill things for me. Like them not realizing that right now the sport is in a losing money spot. And you have an opportunity to introduce a ton of people to your sport, to your drivers, to your things, right? So that's where I think would be great. And I think the people in the powers that be are fantastic at understanding how that rates. Like I mentioned Dale Jr. being on that podcast talking about college football. And as a guy who runs a 32-man college football league, he's in there. He's in there, right?
Well, yeah.
Like he knows.
So to add on to that point, here's the other thing. You bringing that up with different teams and stuff like that, that's another good point, is that when I start a career mode and I'm driving the Clown Malt liquor car to just start, or like I'm rolling in the Jim's Cookies like 91 car,
Right.
I'm just starting out, and I don't expect my equipment to be something that is going to be front running, and that I should be spending some time at the back. Right. And I should be aspiring to get my team up there. Right. And that in and of itself is a career mode thing to go for, is that, you're going to start as a low tier team. And as you start performing, as you start getting money and your facilities update and your car updates and everything else goes, you should be able to grow and put yourself up at the ranks of the big money teams.
So here's the thing, and this is fantastic. I'm happy you said that. When F1 announced their stuff, they announced that they are doing their career mode. When you're a team owner, you're the team owner. You are not an owner driver. You are the team owner, which means you have to manage putting guys in the car. You've got to manage your R&D. You've got to manage those things. But you still get to drive. You still get to play. But you are not you're not your avatar player in the seat. You are whoever driver you hired for your seat. Okay? And I like that. A lot of people were kind of, no. I like that. If you're owner, there's not a lot of owner driver, okay? You know what I'm saying? That's like if you put Madden, you got to say, I'm going to be the head coach, but then you also got to make yourself the quarterback. Like it is immersion breaking for me, right? There isn't really that in that sport. In NASCAR, outside of Denny, we don't really see that, right? So I think that's one lane, but I'm going to focus on driver specific stuff. You mentioned starting out. I think, first of all, there should be multiple avenues to start that can change the trajectory. This is what I think would be a win.
Sure, yeah.
For example, let's say I am a like one path you can take is the hardest road. It's like the equivalent of being a 1-star in college football, right? You're going to start in like you play Road to Glory, you start out as a 1-star recruit or 1-2-star recruit, right? Doesn't mean you're bad, but it's the hardest path. So what's going to happen? Well, one, I'm going to be in a mid-tier ARCA ride. And that's where I'm starting. I'm starting
Right.
I completely blank, no negatives, no positives, completely blank as a driver, right? Maybe I choose my background and stuff like that, but I mean, it's the hard way. I'm in an ARCA ride, and I'm going to have to get there on skill. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, you can go
Right.
to dirt, just
Right.
like because
Ooh,
old NASCAR
right.
games of old start you in there, or the old
Right,
Whelen
but
series.
25 is going to start with ARCA. So they have the ARCA licensing, you're starting with ARCA. So you go
Sure,
do
yeah.
ARCA, right? And then you work your way up, right? Maybe another path is like they'll call you a road course ringer, right? Like you're the SVG or the Boris Said or Marcus Ambrose. So here's the difference. One, your age is higher. So like minimum age start is 25 because you have to have
Right.
a previous background, right? So
Yeah.
instead of being 18 and maybe you progress a little bit quicker at 18, 19 up those ranks in ARCA, you're going to be 25. You're going to start with more, and that is a higher rating in road course. And we'll talk about like what does the rating do for you as the driver, right? Like how do maybe I'm not, any better at Watkins Glen and Sonoma as I am in ovals, but I chose the road course ringer pass. So what does that do? Well, maybe for my character now, there's like some, like for example, tire wear. I like, even though if I drive the car the exact same way as if I didn't have this boost, my tire wear is 10% less to start. So even
Right.
though I'm
Yeah.
driving
It's
the
like
same,
little
right,
pieces.
the game is again not huge, not that I can make the tires last 20 laps longer, but maybe 5 laps longer. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And they wear just at a smaller rate on road courses, not Bristol. Right. So that's like my first kind of deal. But the idea is like, hey, I'm 25 now. I got that boost. And maybe as a result of that, I don't start an ARCA. Maybe it
Right.
puts me over here, right? And I want there to be multiple avenues, right? A funded driver, you know what I'm saying? Or again, they can't put the
Yeah.
word pay driver in there, but I'm trying to think of different archetypes. And maybe you're a
Sure.
dirt guy. Maybe you're a dirt guy. So again, your starting point is still going to be, for the most part, like ARCA or Truck Series, right? Like they'll let you choose that. But I think at the end of the day, that would be a net win. And how do I get better? I want to make a decision. For example, let's say I am really good. Maybe I'm picking up this NASCAR game, and I've been doing road racing on iRacing for like 5 years. I'm nasty with it. You know what I mean? Well, I get to choose my archetype. Well, if I'm going to choose or where I'm going to apply my practice, right? Let's say I'm going to do simulator stuff. Maybe that's the way the week to week things you get in the simulator and you do lap times, right? And what can that do? And we talked about this a bit. If I do 20 laps at the track that we're going to this week, Charlotte, I do 20 laps in the simulator on Charlotte. Let's just say that counts as a fuel run. So now, instead of a range of what my fuel is going to be, it's exactly to the lap. So I never have, like, if it says, hey, you've got maybe 3 laps on fuel. No. We did practice last week. So I know I have exactly 2 laps on fuel.
Yeah.
Right.
You can apply like a direct like training to action at the race.
I did a tire run. I know and that makes, so on top of my 10% tire wear, I added another 10%. So now, because I did the practice and because my driver's already good at these kind of tracks, now it's a 20% tire wear difference. So now there's a reason to do the practice mode. And at the same time, that has applications on race day. And then I have to make a decision. For example, like I said, I'm a good road course racer. So if I know we got Watkins Glen this week and I hop in the simulator, right? do I want to do a test at Watkins Glen that week and make like basically go all in? I'm already good. My attributes already add a little bit of a boost. Let me double that boost with simulator time and go win this race, right?
Yeah.
Or I take my seat time, apply it to a track I'm not good at to become more balanced. So now I let the fact that I'm a good road course, just me as a driver, I'm like, hey, I'm comfortable in road course races. I'll make up for that lack of boost.
You're just riding in on vibes,
right?
Because you already know.
Because I already know, and I'm good at that. So, for example, I mean, I'm not a road course, but like me, I'm a big 1.5 mile guy. I'm not very good at short tracks in iRacing. So for me, I would be doing my sim time at short tracks because I'll be like, hey, 1.5 miles, I'll let my skill handle that. Short tracks, I want to be good because I'm more balanced. And then you make that decision. Maybe it's track specific. Maybe it's not even type of track. Maybe it's like, you know what I mean? Like maybe you win that Vegas race in the chase and you know you're guaranteed top 4. So for the next 3 weeks, you just practice at Phoenix.
Right.
In the simulator, right? Like to kind of prep your, like that's a win.
Those are the details that I think are really good. I have another general point.
Yeah.
That is, this one's big to me. And I think that, like, I love exactly where you're going with that because I think it's one of those things that makes the game a little more robust. Because having a deep, really well-run career mode is going to be a make or break thing for this game because I think that's going to be one of the more, besides online racing, it's going to be one of the most significant, most played aspects of the game. So here's one of the other things about that that's more of a general point. iRacing is full simulation. iRacing is a deep, thorough racing sim that has a barrier to entry to it. iRacing jumping into the video game fold does create a challenge for them because one of the things that they need to do with this game also, it needs to have entry level capabilities. That you don't have to make an arcade game. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
What I'm saying though is that you need to make a game that's going to be fun for a casual gamer who's just flipping this on to kill a couple hours, as much as it's fun for the person who is about to just lose hours and hours of their life to all of the deep little intricacies of this game.
Right.
So you can't create this game in a way that sets the barrier to entry too high for your casual gamer to be able to enjoy it. And that's like all of the points that you're making are perfect for that specific type of mode and all the different things that we're looking for.
Yep.
This is a general point that I feel like needs to be watched. With this, you know, it's,
I'm with
like,
you.
You know, iRacing is going to be iRacing and it needs to stay as iRacing, right? The NASCAR game has to be broad. Right. And it has to be able to pull in a larger audience and be fun for folks that maybe don't even generally watch NASCAR, but they might have to start playing this game. I know when I was a kid, I wanted to watch more races after I played more NASCAR games. Like I spent more time, I got more excited to watch the race after I spent, you know, the night before battling with somebody, you know, in NASCAR 05, you know, like it was.
Right. Well, here's the thing that I think you can implement. So where I don't think they should go is what you've seen in modern NASCAR games, where caution comes out and it auto corrects you to, like, first of all, if you're driving, right, I've played the NASCARs, and a caution comes out, it just overtakes the car. Like it takes over the car, and it's even to the point where if there's people spinning, you'll just hit them, and it's like super immersive because it's just like, oh, you're like the cars are sideways, and the computer just didn't recognize, so it just drove my car nose in. So now I have a bunch of nose damage on the car, right? Part of the NASCAR experience is yellow flags. Part of the NASCAR experience is driving on pit road, and that is what NASCAR early 2000 games they take out, right? It's like, do you want to pit? Yes, and then it drives you down pit road, and then it pits for you, and you check the tires. So I think, to an extent, again, we're talking specifically under a single player mode, right? Which is, like, you got to find the balance. Right? For example, with F1, there's a lot of things that you can do, or you can let it control itself. And I think that's the first thing, which is like, I should have the option, if I want to drive on pit road, to let me can't control everything. I'm responsible for getting the pit road speed.
You should be able to try to dial your pit road speed down. You should be the one that has to be able to get out. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Or I can turn on auto pit road speed, which is
Yes.
it does not matter. Like I am only responsible for getting under the speed limit as I enter pit road, and it'll auto hold me at that speed. Like I literally physically can't accelerate past 50 miles an hour, right? And then you make the pit stall, like it auto pulls you in. Again, it could be something like with F1, you just hit X at the right time, and if you don't hit X, maybe you pull in at the wrong thing, right? Another thing with iRacing is they have no collisions on pit road. So like literally we could drive through each other. So like have that in the game. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Or limit damage, or no damage occurs under yellow flags, or no extra damage gets added under yellow flags.
Right.
But the driving around, the pacing, the coming off pit road, the experiencing, oh shit, I'm second, let's go. We had a good pit stop, And even then, that'd be another piece of that off-season thing. Like, hey, go do pit crew time. And if you go in there and you practice coming down pit road, and it could be like a little mini game where it's like out in the back.
I was about to say, what if it's a mini game or a QTE?
Right. You're driving in and you have to get low. It says, all right, brake, and you get down, and then you get going, and then you pull into your stop, and they go. And just by you doing that X amount of time gets the pit crew better. Again, you can already pay for a crew. They could be this good, but if they're a B tier crew and you added, you're doing those practice reps, it only makes it easier for you. And maybe it's unique to this week. Hey, this week pit road's going to be 35 miles an hour at Bristol. It's one of the most strict ones, so make sure you're getting all the way down. So you test it, for that week, so you kind of get your limit like that. That would make it. Now, let's talk about what I think what could break the game. And I'm not gonna say I'm discouraged, but I already saw a hint of this, and I just hope that it's a small piece, not the big piece. Okay. The biggest mistake I think they can make, Jeff, is text. Hey, driver, you have one action to choose between two. You can either go to an autograph session, or you can go to the gym. And you click autograph session. It goes, you've gained 150 new fans. No.
Somebody has gotten a little frustrated playing Road to Glory in NCAA.
It is 2025. That is not an option. That is not an That is not a video. That is not. What did I write? That is not indicative of a modern video game. That is lazy.
I love that you got pages of notes on this one.
That is fantastically lazy. Like, again, I'm not saying it needs to be fucking Grand Theft Auto 6 where if I go film a movie scene, I have to like say the lines, right? Like, and if that is a small piece of it, okay, hey, I did my simulator time, I have some downtime. Hey, what am I going to do? I'm going to go do an autograph session. I'm going to do that. Okay, cool. But like, that has to be a minor thing, right? Do not make that the whole thing. Like between the races, all I do is click a button to go. Congrats, you did a tweet. The fuck? That is not a video game. I just clicked something.
All of that stuff, and it's been this way for years.
Right.
With not just like so many other games. Like that's always felt so forced. Like look at the way now a lot of the cutscenes from like NBA 2K have aged because of how bad they were at the time, that now they're generally just comedy fodder.
Right.
Like that in and of itself, there's a charm to that because you're not going to expect like NBA players to do voice acting well, right?
Right.
But my God, the amount of games that tried to insert some element of having to check your email as a big part of the game, and it ends up kind of being irrelevant, or it ends up being way too unnecessarily involved in the game.
Right.
Like, yes, you own a team and you're running things, and there's aspects and annoying like minutia that you have to take care of. I'm not sure exactly how you incorporate that into the game, but don't take notes from some of the other games in the past that have done that because they suck.
Right.
It is so annoying when I have to, like, I spend my day at work having to read emails and responding to people and other crap like that, and just generally like I'm not tuning into my video game to get pressured by hearing the Microsoft Teams ring.
Right. Well,
don't incorporate that in my video game, please.
Log on to Teams and send everybody an email. though. So there's two key things, right? There's in NASCAR as a driver. There's getting sponsorships, and there's working your reputation to gain rides, right? You're constantly trying to make sure you're sponsors. So I think in sponsors there should be two lanes: personal sponsors, team sponsors, right? So they all work together, but like the team is responsible for the team. So if you take a career mode as an owner, your responsibility will be meeting as the team sponsors, right? And you have that avenue to figure out how you're going to do it. But as a driver, you don't do that. Your team sponsors comes from whatever car you have. You are responsible for your personal. And the more, so how do you do that, right? Well, maybe I think the sponsors are looking for a couple things. One, your personality rating, right? So if you're doing a lot of time building your brand, if you do have a lot of followers, maybe there could be an element of social media, but I want to be able to like, not just like, Noah Gregson sent you a text, said that was really mean of you. And you send happy text response or apologize or, again, that's not a mode to just say apologize or whatever, but like, going out there, talking on Twitter, being active, like, okay, there's a thing. So you build your brand a little bit. You finish high in races, you build your brand, whatever you got to do. Okay. And that's where those mini games, those little mini things, not even games, things can matter. But then you need to meet with sponsors. There should be a sponsor meeting and you get to choose to meet with a couple sponsors and they ask you questions. And you don't know if that sponsor likes this answer or this answer. For example, this sponsor they want a nice driver. They want you to give good answers. They want you to be respectful on the track. Hey, again, it could be scenario based. Hey, you're in second place. The leader's a second ahead. Are you going to push, win at all costs or happy with my second? And you know what? If you choose second, the sponsor's
like, Kyle Busch situation.
Right. And the sponsor's like, I want a guy that's going to go win. I want to see my car in victory lane. Or the sponsor's like, I just want to see my car. I want you to have a good reputation. We want good guys that represent our brand. Right. Yeah. And then, and all those things. And they choose that's what you want. And that will make you available for more sponsors or less. Also, your track reputation should matter. Right.
Yeah.
Every drive.
So I'm glad that you had brought that up because that was one of the things I wanted to touch on too, is so in NASCAR Heat, one of the things that just feels really weird is you have these situations where because you've made contact with another driver on track, it says that that driver's relationship with you is like they're like they have a rivalry or that they're irritated or they have something, but it is so inconsequential to anything else in the game. It's literally just words.
Right.
Like when you do certain things like that, like I'm not saying it should have these like wide sweeping, awful reputations when you end up getting a wreck with somebody.
Right.
But when it becomes constant, there should be some reaction and it should have a ripple effect through sponsors, through, everything else that happens. It shouldn't be completely inconsequential in the same way that it also shouldn't completely tank your game. But like, if you lose a big primary sponsor because you caused a 15 car pile up in a thing, you probably should, your equipment might dial back or it should have something go back. For the next few races, you're going to be a little slower.
Right. Your car's not totaled and you choose to retire the car. Right.
Yeah.
So you hit retire, what I'm saying? You're like, we want to retire the car. And maybe they go, hey, the car absolutely could have still ran. You just got a little bit of damage. You could have ran for points, and you get like.
So what if you were 160 laps down?
Right. You go spin out and ruin Ryan Blaney's race.
There and spin out with.
But the idea is that your sponsors, they might lose a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but all those things matter, right? Here's another thing that I think could ruin. I think that has to happen in career mode. Has to happen. Okay, if we are going to start this in 2025, so you are an ARCA 2025, and you make it to Cup by 2031. Okay, Denny Hamlin shouldn't be in the 11.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like. Like that, you know what I'm saying?
Drivers should retire. Yes.
Drivers should retire. Drivers should move rides. Let Alex Bowman be in the Wood Brothers 21. You know what I mean?
This touches on your point before about like, can NASCAR not be a little too sensitive about some of these things?
Right.
Because
Right.
if you get to a point where they say no, because we have this relationship with this sponsor in real life,
Corey Haim is a
you can't
Toyota
have
driver.
this
Yeah.
driver.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a
you can't
Toyota
have
driver.
this driver leave this team
And
and shift
right.
things out the way you want
And
to. Yeah.
every other sport plays ball. Dude, imagine playing a Madden game and you weren't allowed to trade Patrick Mahomes off the Chiefs because the Chiefs were like, nah, he's a Chiefs quarterback. He must stay. Right?
Right,
Every gaming organization turns a blind eye to that and they go, listen, it's virtual. It's fake. As long as when you load up and you play a normal game or whatever, it has that there, but they let it take control. So that is important to me in a way. It is extremely immersion breaking when it is 2045 and Denny Hamlin is still racing in the 11 or Jimmy Johnson was still racing in 48. Like
at the ripe old age of 87, he's still out there on track.
It's not a career mode. It's not a career mode at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just auto-generate a bunch of ARCA drivers with a bunch of different levels of talents.
Yes.
And let them move up the ranks. So maybe some guy you battled in ARCA, nobody else knows because it's an auto-generated driver with the auto-generated stats. But you were battling him in ARCA, and the next thing you know, he got the fucking JGR 18, and you're the Hendrick 24, and you're battling it out against your old ARCA buddy. Like that is a career mode. You know what I mean? That is what matters. Not...
Yes.
Dude, I remember some NASCAR games, dude, you're the 24 and there's still a 24 out on the track.
Yeah.
What are we doing, dude? So
they couldn't even take the other car away. Yeah.
Right. So I think with all of those things, you know, that natural progression, but I think the most important thing is, and the last thing I think of is like replay value, right? And that starts with the paths that we're talking about, but let there be random events that occur that just change the whole scope, right? And I want to bring up a key one, and this is kind of leading away from the NASCAR talk into the last bit of the pod, which is you talked about last time. Hey, remember this guy? Let's remember that guy. And me and you are here. There's no Corey to go. I don't know this guy, whatever. But Denny won recently in a Carl Edwards scheme, and I got to thinking because I've been watching a lot of old races, and Carl Edwards won one of the races I was watching the other day, and I was thinking, where did Carl Edwards come from? Because I don't remember Carl Edwards working his way up through. I don't remember. I remember Carl Edwards beat Jimmy Johnson. He passed him on the outside in a green car. Can't remember. It was a green paint scheme. And he won. But I don't remember. Was that his first win? Where was he before? So I went.
Who is this guy and where did he come from? Yeah.
Who is this guy and where did he come from? Right? So I went and I did a little bit of research, and there's not a whole lot in terms of what he did prior, but in like 2003, 2004 time frame, he was driving part-time for a truck team, and he finished like 8th in his highest. He ran like 10 races, and he finished 8th in his highest at Kansas. No surprise, Carl Edwards good at the mile and a halves. He ended up getting brought on to Jack Roush. I guess it was just enough to catch his attention, and he drove trucks for Jack Roush. And he won quite a couple races in the 99 truck. And at the end of 2004, Jeff Burton, because we know Jeff Burton growing up driving that 31 singular wireless car, but Jeff was through the late 90s, early 2000s, was a Jack Roush driver in the 99. And he departed in 2004. So to finish out the season, Jack Roush brought up a truck driver to just drive there. And he finished 10th in his first race. So he finished 10th in his first race in a Cup car. And all he's done is run some truck series for Jack Roush. Okay? So he finishes 10th. This is unheard of in modern, mainly because of rules now. But guess what happened in 2005 there, Jeff?
I have a feeling you're going to tell me.
He became a full-time rookie in both Xfinity/Busch Series and Cup at the same time for Jack Roush. He got brought on to drive the full series for both. All they did was finish out the 99 for a small stint in Cup while they were trying to figure out, and they said, fuck it. We'll just make you the 99 Cup driver. Also, you're going to also be a rookie in Xfinity this year as well.
Right. You're just the guy.
You're just going to be the guy. No babying you through Xfinity while there's prime Kevin Harvick, while there's Kyle Busch is, on the come up as well, and all these other. No. You're just going to, Martin Truex is out there. winning championships. You're just going to be an
They
Xfinity
pinned a
driver.
20 to his collar and wished him the best of luck.
And
Is pretty much
also while you're learning these Xfinity cars, you're going to learn the Cup cars on Sunday as well. And also for a premier team, by the way, they won the championship in like 2004, the year before, with Kurt Busch in the 97. So, welcome. And I'm thinking back to 25. What if that happens for you? Maybe most playthroughs you have to go trucks or ARCAs to trucks to Xfinity. What if something happens and if you finish higher than 10th in that race, they just give you the ride? And all of a sudden you're a 19, 20-year-old Cup driver. That is replay value. And it doesn't happen every time you play, right? It's something that just occurs, right? Yeah. Hey, Alex Bowman got sick this week. We need you to drive the car. Alex Bowman got COVID. No, don't bring COVID into the game. That'll piss everybody off. But so he goes in and he's driving 2005, and they go to Atlanta, and he wins his first Xfinity or Busch Series Xfinity race at Atlanta, to net his first win in Xfinity. The next day, he passed Jimmy Johnson on the outside of turn 4 to win his first Cup Series race. He is the only driver to ever win his first Xfinity race and his first Cup race in the same weekend. Right. And that made him at the time the 11th driver all time to win in all 3 series. He also swept Atlanta that year as a rookie. He wasn't eligible for Rookie of the Year because of the small stint he did in the 99 the year before, in 2004. Mm-hmm. But for all intents and purposes, he would have won Rookie of the Year for both series because he did win it for Xfinity. So that's in 2005. He wins the Busch Series championship in 2007. He finished second to Jimmy Johnson in 2008. And then went winless in 2009. So he had a really weird career. Like, he had a really good rookie year in 2005, and then he went winless in 2006. Then he won the Busch Series in 2007 and finished second in points to Jimmy Johnson in 2008, and then went winless in 2009. 2011, he ties with Tony Stewart for the championship, loses the tiebreaker because he only had 1 win to Tony's 5 wins. So, great year. 2012, no wins. Okay, so Carl Lewis had a really weird career where it was like, great season, no wins. Great season, no wins. Great season, no wins.
Yeah, it was feast or famine.
Right, and so weird. 2015, he makes the move to Joe Gibbs to drive the 19. And then in 2016, 2 years, or after the second year of his deal, he just leaves racing altogether. Many claim that is due to the stage racing and the lack of horsepower, or the talks of horsepower going away. I don't think it had gone down at that time, but he was not a big fan of stage racing for sure, and now he's doing his own thing. So, but within the context of what we're talking about, that is what will make this a great game, where career mode is not cookie cutter. Random things could happen that can change you. Maybe you do sign a deal with a manufacturer, and you're being told, hey, this is your timeline. And then all of a sudden Toyota comes and they go, hey, make it I don't know if that's another thing too, is like NASCAR contracts are not public. I don't think. To an extent. I think maybe years is known, but maybe not money. So
yeah, I don't think you have exact dollar amounts.
So that's another thing, because obviously the NFL, all that money's like public, right?
Right.
But finding a way to make it to where contract negotiations count, that'll matter for you as a driver, because you're coming up on a year, and you're going to get more of those meetings. Those driver meetings start to come in your contract year, versus the sponsor meetings. And then also, if they do have like a team owner mode, then obviously at that point, you know exactly what your 3 driver, you have to buy a charter. If you want to purchase a charter, it's going to cost you $45 million. If you want to expand, and you have to make that decision, make it like a rough average thing. Again, the less NASCAR tries to manipulate that to make them look better, or be like, oh, we got to hide that from the sport. No. Like, you got to have some front office stuff. I mean, Jeff, you're managing a team, okay? You're let's say you take over 23XI. You've got 3 cars at that moment, and like, what kind of managerial decisions would you think would be cool to be in the game? You have your 3-car 23XI team.
Well, I think. Are you talking about like from an ownership perspective,
Owner,
or
you're
just
the
like managing?
you are the
Yeah,
owner, right? You're the team owner of 23XI in the game, right? Like you've taken over. Denny Hamlin has given you the team, or whatever
yeah.
the scenario is here. You run
You should be
23XI in
able to
game.
have. You should be able to have say in aspects of whatever your paint schemes are going to run out that week. Like you should
Hmm.
have choice. Like if you're running well and you
A
have
livery
this
system.
luxury, and it should fluctuate, right? Of having the ability to make some choices on which sponsors you're going to run out and where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You should honestly be able to make pretty cut and dry decisions on what's going to happen with your drivers, with your pit crews, who's going to go in, who's going to. You should be able to have individual control
Hmm.
over those aspects. Those are things that can make it or break it. Like when you are in the owner, it's not just also decisions. Like what does that look like? Like are you driving? Do you spectate? If you're in that position where you
Mm,
don't drive, what does it look like in some sort of a spectate mode? What is it like? Can take control of the rest of the team? That's something I think would be kind of cool too.
right.
Is you're not driving, but then you can jump into the head of the spotter and pit crew at the same time, and you have to run certain events,
Right.
and you have to be able to like incorporate yourself into certain things like that. I don't know. It's those are some things that I think could be really cool. I don't think we're going to get that kind of stuff,
Right.
especially this deep. I think the main thing is going to be coming up with something that's going to be solid, have basically infinite replay value, and give you enough immersion that you're going to want to finish this career mode and do your next one. Or you're going to want to start, or you're going to have three
Yeah.
concurrent ones going at the same time. Or more realistically, for just about any gamer out there, you're going to start one, get really, really into it, get a few weeks in, and then you're going to leave it for a week and you're going to forget what happened. You're going to start a new one, and then you're going to
Right.
do the
Right.
same thing and rinse and repeat for a while. And
Right.
all of those should be different experiences.
It all depends. So this is again, if we hear news that they're gonna do a lot, an owner mode and a driver mode, you know what that means to me? That means they saved a lot of time by just using their iRacing base. And that's good news for anybody who's a true racing fan, right? They use the resources. If they feel like they had to rebuild all of that shit completely, then they don't have time for those modes. So that's another thing that I think of. That being said, I think the happy balance, right, is it is a primarily driver career with the option to own your own Xfinity or Truck Series team, and it stops there. That way,
Yeah.
the truck teams have a little bit of less knowledge. You can choose to drive up to 5 races as a driver in your career. I would rather that, and then they focus in 26 to be a truly fleshed out team owner
Well,
mode, right? Because
so
that's when we're
yeah.
making big boy decisions. Hey, am I selling my third charter this year? Do I want my
Well,
two
so I'm
teams
really
to be
glad
more
that you
competitive?
brought that up
Yeah.
because that's another thing that could be good. And I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt
you're
you
good.
on that one, but while I have the thought, it could be really cool if, like, if you want to focus on success in different areas, like the same trajectory, maybe not doesn't have to be the same every time, right? Like, say you were a Kyle Busch type, right? Where you have your truck team and you run it in on occasion
All
and you
right.
just go out and dominate everybody for a while, right? But then you're a full-time driver anywhere else. But at the same time, like you have a successful, like solid truck team, and that's okay. That's good.
Right.
Like, and you should have a certain level of immersion with that and not save all of the immersion level of that mode specifically just for Cup.
Right.
It'd
Right.
be really cool to be able to be able to focus on those different successes. I
Right. No,
just a thought
totally.
there too.
Choose your own experience. In theory, you should be able
Yes.
to start career mode and take control of Hendrick Motorsports day one.
Why not?
You should. You
All of a
should.
sudden, you're Mr. H.
All of a sudden, you're Mr. H, right? Team owner, Hendrick Motorsports, boom. But the expectations are through the roof, right?
Well, so that can be a difficulty level factor too, because
Right.
like you go, you start, you
And if they
run
won't
run the
let
game for the
you,
first time,
if they won't
and you
let
take that.
you, right? Well, if they won't let you,
it-
and another thing, I could see a scenario where Mr. Hendrick's like, no, you don't get to just be Hendrick Motorsports without me, right? So maybe the idea is for an existing team, you have to join as like a team principal or something.
Well, right.
right? And then you run the team in lieu of Mr. H. But if you do not meet Mr. H's expectations, you're fired.
Yeah.
And then also, you, like I said, like and they were talking about this in F1. You get to choose which of your drivers you run the race in. So if you do want to race, you can. You get to choose which of those drivers. So if you are predicating your success on Mr. H says we're winning a championship, maybe I go take on Larson's car and I try to drive him to a championship, right? If he's struggling or whatever, right? Or, you know, if Mr. H says everybody has to make the playoffs and the 48 is struggling, maybe we put resources into the 48, or I drive the 48 car, or as Alex Bowman for that day, or whatever. You manage the drivers coming in and out on contracts. And then you can choose to, if you want to be a team owner, you have to create your own team using the funds that you've made. But again, that's like a NASCAR 26, 27. For me, make it a good driver career mode. Make a good driver career mode. Do not stretch yourself so thin that we get, again, what could kill my entire desire to play this game outside of the racing being perfect, right? But it's not going to be perfect because I've had iRacing. So I need something. And, you know, a good AI, fun career mode, worth growing. If it is just text buttons in a modern game where I'm reading what Jeff Gordon is saying to me, and it's like, cool, congrats, you did the thing. You've earned 116 sponsors this week.
Congrats,
I did not.
Driver.
I pressed A 4 times. That's what I did. And that's boring.
Yeah.
That's not good video gaming. So... But again, I think Dale Jr. understands that.
Yeah.
It can be a part of it.
Too.
It could be a part of it. But I remember distinctly being a 10-year-old playing NCAA 2007, trying to pass a fucking social studies test in-game to keep my GPA up.
Yeah. Or in 2025. Trying to pass your exams to keep your GPA
No,
up.
but you don't. But you don't have to pass your exam. You just have to press A to study this week. No.
Yeah.
Give me the test, dude. And yes, am I a 10-year-old having on a notepad piece of paper the list of the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore? Yes. Did I cheat on that test? Yes, but God damn, bro. I had a GPA that was eligible. Bro, you had a picture in
college level history. Who's on Mount Rushmore?
Dude, and you had to choose your major based on your position. So like you can't just choose any major for any position. Your major helped give you boosts to certain stats. Obviously, those things matter. So whatever position I ended up, I think I was safety. So I needed a lot of speed and coverage. So that was a lot of history, because I guess there's something about history that really makes you want to run fast and play defense.
Everything that you're saying right now is like, please don't do anything like that.
And no. It's the spirit, okay? And also when you were a freshman, you were in a shitty dorm, and it was messy, and there was a picture, and there was a computer screen, and there's a picture, and it was your girlfriend, but she was ugly. And then when you were a sophomore, you had a better room, and she was a little bit cuter.
Oh, God.
And then by your senior year, the girlfriend picture was cute. Okay? Now, but that's the thing, Jeff. That is what I expect from a game made in 2006.
Yes.
Jeff, it's 2025.
Right.
Give me more. Give me more.
Yeah.
The spirit of that, but 2025. Instead, it's Noah Gragson tweeted you a mean tweet. Do you want to reply happily and apologize, or do you want to curse Noah Gragson out? No, dude, we have AI. I should be able to like physically call Noah Gragson and talk to him on AI and be like, hey, dude, you're a bitch. And then dump him at Richmond the next week. Now, I'm not going to get that.
Be able to, well, dude, everything that you're going with there, to be honest with you, I will settle for maybe some variation in what I'm hearing from my spotter. I will settle for some variation in just having voice and talking things. Dude, the amount of like the annoying things of once you get into a race and the only thing that you hear is, okay, driver, great lap. Up high. Oh, get down low, driver. Get down low.
Yeah, let me hear.
Oh, you're clear, driver.
Yeah, let me hear leader time. I mean, for what it's worth, again, if they use the iRacing base, it's fine. If they use the iRacing base, it's completely fine.
that's still better than what's been in the past.
Yes,
So yeah.
yes. You get lap times. You can have them read the leader's lap times. They can read your fall off. They can tell you how much fuel's left. Again,
Yes.
the beautiful thing is they already have the perfect racing platform. I'm not too worried about
Yes.
that. Now, if they choose to just nerf that and just go a completely separate route, we've got bigger fish to fry. At that case, they've ruined. At that point they've just made themselves NASCAR heat. So
Yes.
so
Just build, like, with this game, build me a memorable, very rock solid foundation for you to have things to build on in the
right,
future years
because
that are going to make me want to
if they
spend on the next copy for a reason.
if they could just make the current iRacing a little bit more forgiving on controller for controller based users, because I get it, a majority of your users are gonna be controller based. Make that more forgiving. I don't know how, but like steering inputs have to be a little bit easier for you. You know,
Yes.
I don't know if you can reimagine how the left stick works and stuff, but it's fine for Formula One. But again, oval banked racing, the micro movements are a little bit more difficult. But tune that what you do. Okay, allow things for pit limiting, helping speed, but not taking away the opportunity to drive under yellow. I know it's annoying, and you'll see us in iRacing. We're driving around. We call it iPacing at 60 miles an hour because somebody wrecked. But one, with the game, it being AI, there's going to be less wrecks than what happens on the online platform.
Yeah.
And that's immersion. And then you can choose to, if you don't like yellow flags taking as long as they do, it's only a couple laps, but then you just like I don't know if I want to give you an option to skip it, but just make the races shorter. Like if that's the problem. So customizable, that should work. I mean, we're an hour 20 into this. I don't want to take too long, but I just want to get your thoughts. We're getting closer. More news is going to come out on this game. They don't have to do much to make it great. Just don't do the things that we were talking, because I don't think anybody's looking for that kind of title. I don't think anybody's
Just
looking to
don't screw this up. Like,
right.
and the thing is, the bar is so low.
It's so low. So when you go, but will the casuals? Who cares? Nobody bought the old game anyway. Make it hard. Make it a
See, but
difficult.
no, I
Not
don't
hard,
necessarily
Jeff.
agree with that
Jeff,
because the
Jeff,
other game
you
was
are
so
good though.
bad.
No, but the problem, the game is not. When I mean hard, don't cater to casuals. Don't. And when I say don't cater to casuals, okay, find a way to make it where guys that aren't the base of the game, baseline of the game, you can add things to make it easier for guys, like taking damage off completely, adding driving assist, adding braking assist, right?
Yeah.
Short track braking assist, driver line to help out, right? Similar to Forza, right? But like, do not you are hurt. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're just making it worse for the high end game. Like you're taking away from their ability to make it as realistic as they possibly can within an ideal scope to just cater. For example, we raced a lot of Forza's next gen cars, and I'll be honest with you, if that is how it drives on the road courses, that could be really fun. You could feel the horsepower, you could feel the car getting out from underneath you, but it wasn't like iRacing, which is it literally feels impossible to drive unless you spend hours and hours practicing. Yes, that being said, that same package on ovals, ass. Do not do that. The Forza, and that makes sense. Forza doesn't understand how ovals and NASCAR drive. They understand how road racing drives. Cool. So take the way it drove on the road course, and if that is the type of racing we see in iRace or in this game, beautiful. Job well done. Somebody like you on a controller can absolutely drive on the road courses. Somebody like me on a wheel, I find myself downshifting. If I get back onto the gas, it's coming out from underneath me. I find myself correcting, but it's not miserable. We didn't have to go learn the tracks for an hour, did we? Before we were having decent races. Cool. The ovals are in a rough spot. Where we're driving on Homestead, that's not how Homestead drives. That's not how you gain speed. That's not how tire wear. And granted, we were doing short stints and stuff like that. But if that is what it is, it's going to be a bad product, I think. Because then,
yeah, but I don't think that's what it's going to be, because it's going to be NASCAR first. That's going to be the general focus. Is going to be not trying to recreate something, and it's going to have its own base that's going to be separate and it's going to be different.
Just giving you my frame of reference,
I immediately I immediately tense up when you were first talking about like don't cater to like casuals and things because I don't necessarily think that's like. I'm glad you elaborated.
Yes, with
Because
the Forza example, because that is what I'm looking for. The way that those cars drove on the road would be fantastic for the NASCAR
don't
game.
take away, like for me, it's don't take away from the things that make it a game,
Right.
but also you can build a game that is esports capable
Right. It needs
while
force.
not,
Right. Right.
while not taking away the things that also make it a game.
Right.
That's the thing, is like if I want iRacing, I will invest in all of the things that will give me iRacing.
Right.
If I want NASCAR 25, I'm going to buy NASCAR 25 and play it on my
Right.
console and
Right.
have fun with it.
Right.
And just like anybody else that's there,
Right.
it's like, just don't get too far. Cause we had a discussion about it in the past at some point, and Corey was like, they should mandate this camera, and they go, no,
Right. Yeah. For what
no,
it's worth, iRacing doesn't even mandate that camera. It does in its lobbies, but like you can drive in the exact same
Sure.
camera as that. And I think you have to have those options because driving with a controller is just so different
yes,
than driving. So, but that being said, don't don't make it too easy to drive. Don't make it to where it's nothing, because then it kills skill gap in those things. So, you want to do our Talladega picks and get up out of here?
yeah, I think it's about that time.
It's
That's
gonna
what
be
we're gonna do.
it's gonna be chaos. I'll go first. Ricky Stenhouse
To what?
to win Talladega.
To win.
Yep, I'm gonna go
Interesting.
Ricky Stenhouse.
Okay. Ricky Stenhouse to win Talladega. That's an interesting choice. Okay, you can have that.
They've had some speed. They were second in qualifying this week, and obviously Ricky is always in contention at these types of tracks. So I'm gonna go Ricky Stenhouse.
I'm going to take Bubba Wallace.
There you go. That's a good one.
Win at Talladega and get his win, not in the rain,
Not in the rain.
not in any other condition.
No bullshit.
Bubba to win outright.
All right, take us out.
So
That's a good set.
That's mine. That's what we're going to do. And that's 2 weeks from now. So we'll have to write this down because otherwise we're probably going to completely forget. Anyway, we will see y'all in a couple of weeks. Thanks for tuning in for the long pod. We wanted to leave you with something good and a longer episode to chew on as we roll into the break. That's going to wrap things up for us. Check us out on YouTube under Intentional Rec, Spotify under the same name. Follow us on the socials at IntWreckPod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. Find us, follow us. Please hit that subscribe button, and we will see y'all in a couple weeks. Later.